Rather than being a dangerous method, it is too fashionable and innovative for them, but it also brings a huge impact to their souls, rather than repeating Yang's phrase "a world without me" time and time again, which is very unstable. Yi Mei opened her mouth, her sparkling almond eyes fixed on the shadow until he entered the vast world, still unable to shake off the previous moment. At the same time, Yang Tianwan suddenly twitched his mouth, repeating over and over again that in the eyes of thousands of people in the capital, Ruan was possible. In the eyes of aristocratic officials, Shang Yang drinks eloquently and participates in battles with poetic and heroic spirit. Why do I feel my brain trembling one wave after another as soon as I step into it? This is the best I have been searching for. This is a feeling, I don't want him to do it so easily. This is not my opportunity. This is my opportunity. This is my life. This is my life. This is a painting reflected in the sky. A man in rural attire appeared. Xu Qian summarized his victory and looked around, giving himself 99 points, almost 1 point. He felt a bit embarrassed, but as long as I pretended not to be shy. So he's just a 100-point gold inlaid jade. At this moment, the voice of the Master Do Evil echoes in the ears of the audience, complaining about everything. This game is about climbing the mountaintop and entering the temple. If you still don't want to convert to Buddhism, even if it's my Buddhist scripture. The first level is the 8 suffering war in life. The 8 suffering lives, aging, illness, death, love, separation, resentment, will not seek the 5 tones, red sage. Only with a firm mind are qualified to climb mountains and continue to accept the test of Buddhism. Da Feng has 3 opportunities to challenge Xu Qian's divergent thinking and induction. For a moment, he is unaware of any vitality around him. Du Chong, a bird and beast skill, begins to climb the mountain with doubts. Xu Qian steps up the stone steps and enters the formation. The steps under his feet instantly turned into a quagmire, and he unconsciously fell into Xu Qian's subconscious struggle. However, in exchange for it, it sank faster, and he was swallowed by just treating him. He didn't have any work to do, and I don't know how long it took. Perhaps in a moment, perhaps hundreds of years, Xu Qian vaguely heard the cry of a baby tearing through the black curtain. He saw white walls and white sheets. A group of people wearing white uniforms, a nurse is cleaning up a newborn baby. The baby is slowly growing up, living the happiest childhood and being forced to go to school year after year. The harsh nights that dominated his youth eventually led him to work day and night at the company to save enough money to buy a house. In the end, he paid off a mortgage for 30 years. At this moment, the young man grew up into an uncle or was forced or voluntarily accepted by his parents to take the baton, becoming the person he despised the most in his youth. Whether it was education for his descendants or heartless preaching, he never gave up on the person he used to be. Xu Qian became increasingly numb as he began his final life as a widow. As he lay in the hospital bed, Xu Qian felt quiet and comfortable. Finally, he could rest. One cycle ended, and the second cycle began. The thought of Xu Qian hiding in an empty door is getting heavier and heavier. This is the 8 hardships of life: birth, aging, illness, death, love, separation, resentment, and inability to seek the 5 yin red saint. What is the meaning of a life like this? My life is not like this. It should end to be like this. In the cycle of reincarnation, there is a voice in Xu Qian's heart that keeps saying, rest. This way, life is meaningless. Let go of everything and you will be free. Wang Zhenwen suddenly sat up in the capital square and suffered a lot. This battle is caused by the sorcery of the Buddhist sect. If unable to break the battle, it will lead to a broken heart like a fallen person. If peaceful through the battle, it shows that this person has Buddha nature, giving you the opportunity to turn him into a Buddhist disciple. Challenge me, the true appearance of the great master without fear. I release hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Why is the evil Taoist so happy to engage in Buddhism, not a monstrous creation on the tower? Wearing a Taoist robe, standing on the border of the mansion, looking at the square, it is said that witnessing this battle, witnessing this meditation, how powerful it is, previously drinking and explaining to Vien Sauda, he is not as powerful as he seems. He is the kind of person who specializes in breaking battle formations. If a person easily enters the battle formation, he can easily come out, but the more he experiences pain, the harder it is to break the formation. In this Buddhist sect, the battle formation is to increase the power of sorcery, using the emotions of the heart. Whoever experiences it knows. The more fulfilled the heart is, the more it falls into the battle formation, the broken heart of the Buddha nature. Emperor Vien Sao was serious for a moment. The Buddhist sect is still like that. His face instantly darkened. In this battle, if he loses, the original friendship will turn into enmity. The grand officials on the square suddenly changed their expressions, originally just watching the excitement. The wives and daughters also withdrew, playing and joking without laughing or speaking anymore. Instantly, the clock flashed, the corner of the eye slightly raised, Wati and in the battle formation. The peach blossom eyes fascinated him, he escaped into nowhere, constantly growing and quickly eroding his will. But suddenly, he instinctively felt a little scared. With a firm belief in his own beliefs, Xu Qianan instantly realized that his thoughts were flawed, as if he had schizophrenia. At this moment, two consciousness streams collided within his body. He hugged Xu Qianan's head in pain, unable to do anything, and forced himself to think about something else. For example, the beautiful shadow of Fo Shangna's snow-white buttocks, Hall, instantly occupied Xu Qianan's mind, and he suddenly regained consciousness. But before he can cheer, a thought is transmitted into Hua Kyan's head, that life is on the brink of the battle. There are 3 types of methods that can break through. Hua Kyan wants to ask immediately, but he cuts off and doesn't need to respond. Don't think about things related to you. What you hear is that this is the magic of the monks. The mood is used to enter the battle. There are only 2 results, a deeper understanding or a broken mood. If you can overcome the 8 sufferings battle, it would represent the Buddha nature. Hua Tayan wakes up. No wonder I had the idea of entering non-sectarianism. We are here to calm our minds. The idea of the Tan monk once again transmitted to the outside. Besides the 2 above, there is another method, which is to use the power of sentient beings. Hua Kyan clearly does not know what the power of sentient beings is, but the Tan monk does not say any more. He wants to ask, but just starting from the instinct of his instinct, caution immediately stops all thoughts in his head, but in that way Hua Kyan, who was originally clear-headed, begins to get confused again, if he falls into the cycle again. Relying solely on himself, fundamentally incapable of restoring reason once again. Waiting can only lead to a broken mood. Reflecting on the 8 sufferings of life, forces must come to disrupt, but where do I get the power of sentient beings? Obviously not a martial artist, so capable Hua Kyan considers all his options. Suddenly, an insignificant image appeared in his mind, Nungi Sonwin Fat, teaching us to nurture energy, suggests using one's own emotions as a force to blend into the sword's movements. I am currently really emotional, but not enough to break through the 8 sufferings battle, but a change of mind. Why do I have to use my own emotions? Why don't I try to borrow someone else's emotions to support my advice? This idea is uncontrollable from the beginning. He closed his eyes and used his secretary Chu Yuan to teach him how to sense emotions. He competed to sense the emotions outside. That is the emotion of the onlookers from the capital city. This ocean is mainly composed of tension and anger. Xu Qian is immersed in the vast emotions and absorbs the anger. Gradually, a strong and boundless anger rises from his heart, and he unconsciously holds down the knife bridge. The Yisheng sculpture, which seemed to be about to draw a sword, suddenly shook at the Cloud Road Academy in Qingyun Mountain. A majestic aura rushed up to Qingyun, and a red wooden box was placed in front of the Yisheng sculpture. Amidst the vibration, it was unclear what had been sealed. It seemed like they were about to break through the river, and then 3 clear lights flashed. The 3 great scholars, Li Mubai, ran over to check the situation of Yisheng's sculpture. Why did they move? Dean Zhao Shuyu said that someone was stirring up the power of sentient beings. He replied to the 3 great scholars, as if he was watching a madman, while also doubting whether he had a bad rest last night, so now there is a misconception that Zhao Shou has not responded. They are promoted to medical practice and ask the senior to calm down. The 3 great figures, such as Fang Rugong, woke up from their dreams and practiced medicine one after another. Please speak quietly, senior. The shock of the redwood box weakened and slowly regained calmness, as if nothing had happened just now. Someone shouted hoarsely that he was about to draw a sword. Princess Weiqing was stunned and puzzled by Xu Qianan's actions. Not only did he, but anyone who knew about Baku Town, couldn't understand Xu Qianan's intentions because Baku Town was not an enemy. What's the use of pulling out a knife? Do you want to cut yourself? Emperor Yuan Jing, Chen Sheng, from upstairs to Kim Jong-il. This is how you want to pick on him. His behavior is like jumping over a wall with a dog. There is an indescribable disappointment in your eyes. With a sigh, His Majesty didn't feel anything about Xu Qian constantly absorbing the power of external emotions in the painting, but this was far from enough. Suddenly, the voice over the painting was so loud that he drew his sword. He had just finished shouting. Among the people outside, there is someone shouting, "Why not draw your sword quickly, draw your sword." Manham Taiki drew his sword and the sound of drawing swords reverberated throughout the sky. The more swords were drawn, the more shouts were heard, until finally, the sound of drawing a knife and the sound waves connected like a tide, so Xu Qian's gaze in the painting instantly became extremely sharp. With a painful cry, he sacrificed himself to the peaceful Buddhist realm, and suddenly a dazzling light surged up, as if he had broken through the sunlight in the darkness. This chaotic light condensed not the power of Xu Jian, but the power of millions of people, sincerely working together to make a sound on the stone tablet with 8 hardships, which was filled with cracks. Then with a loud bang, the entire Foshan seemed to collapse in the midst of this vibration, and the force of the 8 suffering formation originating from this Buddhist realm was cut. This sword strike is the power of a bodhisattva. This scene is not from the Fat Mountain but from the evil master outside. An evil intention bows his head. Seeing Kim Ba crack open a gap, the clock ticks, he stands up and shouts. One side points incessantly at Kim Ba, stepping on Kim Ba foot, causing the young woman to scream loudly, causing confusion among the crowd and martial artists who cannot see Kim Ba clearly or not see Kim Ba at all. In that urgent moment, everyone desperately wants to confirm whether Kim Ba has truly cracked open or not. Is Kim Ba really cracked open or not? It's not very clear, dear distinguished guests sitting in the luxurious bronze barrel. Just looking at Kim Ba cracked face, instinctively, Kim Ko is truly cracked open, Kim Ba is truly cracked open. Accompanied by cheers like waves in a royal court, higher than the previous waves, the rotten and decaying lousy donkey is not very strong. Do you really think that our strong wind does not blow quickly back to the western capital? The capital is not a place where you can display martial arts grandiosely. On the rooftop, we watched the distant view of the people cheering and boiling, with a slight smile on our faces. We let out a soft hum, which was pretty good. The capital, Wang Zhenwen, whispered, and Wei Yuan had another member of the Tiger General whistling here. Gai Wen calmly breathes out, casually saying, this sword can cut through the center, it can also cut through the roots. However, in exchange, you can break through the Kim Long gang, causing them to bow their heads in shame. Co-tried Duang Nan couldn't help but ask, how did he do it? Gai Wen's determination is like a cold blade, waiting for him to come out and ask himself, are you the master of this area? Old man Dimai Mu Chin looking at the figure in doubt, the enemy did not come, nor did they come close. Not bad at the Tu Lao. Hang Veen's sneaky glance is hard to believe. How did Mr. Hua do it in the end? Sun Win Fat suddenly looks foolish, muttering as if crazy. How could this be? How could this be? Forever Agnian, Mr. Hua, just now swung his sword, creating a fierce counterattack against him. How can he withstand this at this moment? The voice of Duak, the great master, resounded clearly, transmitting into the veins of the people. Bak Ko Tran is just the first gate, the second gate is called Kim Quang Tran, a high-ranking official. This person, non-Lati, after displaying a powerful sword energy, still has surplus energy to pass through the second gate. The Van Sin people immediately look up at the painting where Hua Qian sits on the stone platform, breathing heavily, his face pale. Even ordinary people who do not practice cultivation can see how weak Hua Qian is. This makes them aware of their premature excitement. This task has just passed the first gate. At the foot of the mountain, far from the mountain peak, Taiyan's condition is like a bucket of cold water poured on everyone's hearts, causing the atmosphere to rise slightly and then subside, making the cheers gradually disappear. Still, martial artists from the outside, along with Tru Kong, surge in the court, remembering the junior monk whose body is dominated by the diamond, fearing the demonic power. That is Kim Quang Bat Bai, who spent half a week at the southern fortress Heroic Tower, rumored to be from the Buddhist sect. Truly invincible, in 5 days, many heroes entered the stage to challenge, but none could break his spirit. Now, Vong Tiu Tu looks at the chief and asks, how does the chief see it? The chief calmly says, Hua the En's martial arts are difficult to win. Starting to consider the next person to choose, but just now, after confronting the chief, Vong Tu Fu is unable to come to a conclusion because the chief cannot stay in one place and falls twice. Vong Tiu Tu smiles, saying, I have another idea. He looks towards Duak, the great master. In a high voice, the great master Bak Ko Tran, a high-ranking monk, uses Buddhist magic that is unrelated to combat power. Even high-ranking martial artists find it difficult to easily break through. But instead of allowing high-ranking martial artists to enter the battle, he seeks a pawn. Vong Tiu Tu calmly smiles and says, just now, Duak, the great master, mentioned that Dai Fuang had 3 chances, but nodded to the high monk during the battle, not denying that the Bak Ko Tran had already broken through. Although Hua Thatan has gone through many lives and cannot pass the Kim Quang Tran royal court, he sent out a high-ranking martial artist to break the formation. Inside the demon's lair, the diamond can stop the great evil master. Surprised and frowning, he did not speak, his eyes shining, conveying various inflated ideas. This is also a method to break the deadlock. In terms of martial arts, our North Tran king is truly worthy of being the #1 disciple of the Great Phoenix. It's not just about wielding a sword to protect the princess, it's about the love and respect from the Buddhist sect. Because he sees the hope of victory in the little princess of the Great Phoenix King, causing the arrogant little senior brother to be momentarily distracted by the enchanting tears on the princess' face, making her turn back to glance at the guard area across from Hua Tianxian. He doesn't understand why he can't resist the senior brother. His face burning, he can't find the words to speak. What is this feeling that renders him motionless? His mind in turmoil. Zhang. He struggles to avert his gaze and the senior brother looks away in shame. But in the next moment, he remembers something. If he's not mistaken, she seems to be the daughter of the chief king. Thinking of this, a hint of disdain for the prince appears on Hua Tianxian's face, with his feelings towards the royal party being particularly low due to the enmity between the Vong faction and the Gai faction. The Vong faction has repeatedly harmed the eldest brother, and he has kept a record of these incidents in his heart. At this moment, the old man opens his mouth to comment, saying that the North King has been praised as the Great Phoenix for 200 years, possessing the most talented dancer. Unfortunately, he is not in the capital, otherwise, he wouldn't have to deal with this arrogant deception. Hua Tianxian unintentionally looks at this man, knowing that this person's knowledge is not something that an ordinary rich household can compare with. He doesn't know where the eldest brother has met such a fortunate person. The eyes of everyone return to Foshan as Hua Qian takes a moment to rest before continuing his journey. As the audience begins to awaken, it becomes clear that he has no intention of letting Hua Qian slip through the checkpoint again. He strides directly towards Master Jingjing. At this moment, Jingjing seems to radiate a golden light, with Hua Qian stopping at the bottom of the stairs and asking if he can rest for a while. Jingjing, the junior monk, sits motionless with his legs crossed, telling him to go ahead. Hua Qian doesn't wait for him to finish speaking before sitting down on his own, rambling about how the master became a monk at a young age. Jingjing nods in affirmation, and Hua Tanan asks whether the master practices meditation or martial arts. Jingjing replies that he practices both, silently acknowledging that this dual cultivation method is quite extraordinary. The talent of this junior monk is quite astonishing. He continues, saying that he heard the monks were focusing on the house earlier and that the master had left home at a young age. Jingjing hears this and realizes that Hua Qian wants to challenge his knowledge of Buddhism. Proudly, he explains that leaving home means leaving behind worldly worries and entering the door of nothingness. He tells Hua Tanan that he doesn't need to ponder every word of the scriptures. Since childhood, he has practiced Buddhist teachings, wandering throughout the world, experiencing hardships. Experiencing all the sufferings of human life. Hua Tanan murmurs to himself, experiencing all the sufferings of human life. You haven't even experienced mortgaging your cart and belongings to the heavens. Before him, he says, experiencing all the sufferings of human life, the painting is truly incomprehensible. How can such a humble servant converse with the venerable monk in this manner? Discussing the princess' recent actions has exhausted him. Hua Qian wants to discuss further with the monk using his rhetoric, but Jingjing interrupts, asking how he perceives feminine beauty. Jingjing's simple response is to evaluate the feminine beauty like sharpening a knife. Hua Qian chuckles, looking at him with a gleam in his eye, realizing that the master has never truly encountered feminine beauty. He muses that feminine beauty is as fierce as a tiger, not the most exquisite worldly object. Unmoved, Jingjing, ever the ascetic, has never truly experienced feminine beauty, knowing it to be as fierce as a tiger. This is a story passed down by generations of high monks. Do not resist or grab the reason. Hua Qian stared at his opponent, calmly asking, does the master take care of his parents? Do you work hard for a family? Do you toil in the fields? Hua Qian continued, heading to the Buddhist temple. It's not just about chanting Buddhist scriptures all day. You also need to welcome visitors to nurture your insight. He asked, what sutra are you reading, and what are you offering to the Buddha? Walking on this earth as a bystander, have you understood the suffering of all beings? Have you experienced life with tranquility, or are you just a fake high monk? Deeply shaken by these words, he pondered for a while before clenching his teeth in response. The Buddha sees the world as it is, and everything naturally becomes clear, he said. Hua Qian nodded, pulled out a black gold sword, and then directly slashed a deep bloody wound on his own hand. He wiped the wound and, looking at Tran Sin Dao, asked, do you know how much pain I feel? Tran Sin Dao folded his hands in front of his chest, closed his eyes, not looking at him. Tin Tu suddenly widened his eyes in pain. He remained silent. His bodyguards had diamond-handled daggers that couldn't harm him, but he couldn't respond. Hua Qian disdainfully said to the master, you still don't understand. You only know I am in pain, but you don't know how much pain I am in. You know the suffering of the world, but you can't grasp how much suffering there really is. You can't even understand the suffering of sentient beings. This is no laughing matter, Tin2 said, closing his eyes tightly. With both hands forming 10 mouths, always chanting the Buddha's name to suppress inner unrest. Hua Kaiyan continued, narrating a story. Once, there was a famine in the empire, and many people died of hunger. A nobleman, upon hearing this, was astonished and said, "Even the master knows." Tin2 questioned. Know what? Hua Kaiyan stared at Tin2, the junior monk, revealing a mocking smile, and said, "Why not eat meat?" As Tin2 gradually widened his eyes, his face stiffened, and the crowd outside loudly supported, saying it was correct. Even before the junior monk could speak, the atmosphere changed. The monk made a convincing argument that if the indestructible diamond of the Western Buddha realm was destroyed, the Buddhist sect would lose. Hua Kaiyan threw the black gold sword towards Tin2, the Trans-Sin Dao master. If you think the master is wrong in his insight, if you believe you can truly experience the hardships of the common people, why not try wielding the indestructible diamond on your arm and striking a blow? Only then will you truly understand. If you continue to resist, why not try not wielding the indestructible diamond? You will lose. Hua Kaiyan tempted the four great masters. But the master did not give in, stubbornly seeking victory, leading to loss in the end after a duel. The master looked at the vast sky, comprehending the true Buddha's teachings. He weighed the options. Tin2, the junior monk, gradually showed a complex expression, struggling, and slowly reached out to grab the black gold sword. The monk should not persist in seeking victory or defeat. Why not eat meat? Why not eat meat? Hua Kaiyan smiled. Everything was in the palm of his hand, but at that moment, a haunting voice echoes in the sky, wanting to reach the ears of everyone. The young and handsome monk, as if just waking from a dream, unsheathes his golden black sword and gazes down. His eyes gradually regain clarity. Is Vong Tu Fu angry? He smashes the cup, surpassing the evil arhat of the Buddhist sect. His followers also explode with anger, shamelessly devouring more food. If you can't win, don't play. The Buddhist monk, without any shame, turns into a nonchalant monk. The hidden treachery quietly supports. Why can't our Buddhist sect get the support of Vong Tu Fu? It seems like he's about to explode, speaking in riddles. You talk about treachery, then treachery it is. The treacherous will support the treacherous. Do you have evidence of the great master's cruelty towards insulting words? The world trembles as Tan calmly says. Why wouldn't you think so? Tan bows his head. When will you recite the Buddha's name? The disciple with the criminal record in the painting remains steadfast, shameless. The challenger, if you think of the second door, will have to face the unbreakable diamond, Wadaden. In his heart, he plans to fight with both literary and martial arts. All of this relies on your strong will. Interfering from the outside is too much. He stops talking and seizes all opportunities. Moments later, Hua Kaiyan retrieves his black gold longsword, sheathing the blade. He raises the blade, saying, I will show you a strike. This strike has gone through life and death, selflessly. Taeyan remains silent, as if disappearing. All emotions and breath within him collapse inward. Like a black wave, this is an indispensable process of the heaven and earth's first sword. He closes his eyes, synchronizing his mental power, contracting and connecting with a massive blood energy within his body. This is the blood essence in the divine box. From Ban Chao's inverse energy on the way, Hua Kaiyan absorbs this drop of blood energy. The immortal martial artist's blood, dead but alive, leaves a lingering part of energy within his body. Meeting with Du Ak Lahan makes Tin2 immediately aware that he cannot escape the unbreakable diamond. With the Buddhist sect's secrets revealed, relying on Hua Kaiyan's power, there is no way to deploy it. So, he hides within the sky, suggesting to mobilize the blood energy within the body. Releasing this residual undigested energy will not reveal its existence in the divine box. By allowing Hua Kaiyan to absorb the immortal essence in the blood on the divine box, his qualities have already eroded. At present, he is just a martial artist, accumulating the essence within his body. The recovered energy is transferred to Wadaden, transforming into pure opportunities. Suddenly, someone loudly asks what is happening. The world trembles as a figure approaches. Gai Wen calmly rises and says, Today, the wind rises like a kite meeting the wind. Lamon looks at his shadow with a sense of horror. This is also within your predictions, right? The sound of Gai Kong Tuong's sword being drawn echoes like thunder across the world. There is no resolve like this in the world, as if wanting to sever everything for a shattered gem, forever. The internal clothes on him are suddenly shattered by the brilliance of Chu Tham's golden light, and at the same time, The blade touches in an instant, emitting a sound that truly seems to cut through everything, filling the eyes with brilliance. The princess, in her own way, keeps asking herself how to bear the burden. Will Donglu and the other leaders not break the promise? Hua That seems naive. They know he's strong, but they don't know the extent of his strength. He had just wielded one sword not long ago. Standing arrogantly on the field, Hua That could clearly see the shattered body, the layers of broken brilliance, as if the outside had been blown away. It was an extremely sharp sword that drove away the invincible diamond brilliance. The southern city had been conquered within a week. The body of the sword, within the hearts of the people, weakened over the course of 5 days. His face turned pale, unable to maintain his posture any longer. He fell to the ground with a visible cut on his chest and abdomen. His internal organs had been damaged. Hua Qian calmly said, "I told you. I only demonstrated one move, and the capital is in a frenzy." Some are in shock, some are cheering, and some are shedding tears of joy. Standing in the palace, the emperor revealed a smile from the bottom of his heart, witnessing his son's prowess. Hua Qian was not in vainly nurtured by the court. The royal capital was not as it used to be. There was a slight change in tone. Was the hero of his youth really missing? At this moment, the sound of his own ribcage, like a pounding heart, which had never been so intense in over 20 years, was not far from him. Princess Hoai Khan, at this moment, had a heart-wrenching scene, looking at the endless expanse, feeling a bit lost. Tham Ton was amazed and exclaimed, "After this duel, our sect will be crushed by her," but Hua Bin Kai did not respond, holding back tears. Everyone has grown up. If the younger brother is happy, Bin Kai will also be very pleased, said Hua Tan Nine quietly. The older brother is getting stronger every day, his martial arts prowess is formidable, and I can't fall behind too much. Hua That is truly beyond my expectations. Even in his youth, Prince Hoai was not as dazzling as him, as Hua That sheathed his sword, continuing to climb the mountain, traversing the misty mountains and forests. There was a large Bodhi tree, under which sat an old monk. Hua That, smiling, asked the master, "Compared to what, venerable one?" The old monk chanted the Buddha's name deeply and replied, "The mind of the disciple is unsettled." As soon as he opened his mouth, the old monk asked in return, "Why seek tranquility?" The old monk answered, "With tranquility, there is a principle, with the Buddha, there is liberation." Hua Qian asked again, "Why seek liberation?" The old monk asked in return, "Why not seek liberation?" Hua Qian argued, "Why seek liberation?" The old monk replied profoundly, "Why not seek liberation?" Everyone outside was stunned, not understanding what they were talking about. Hua Qian continued, "Master, let's speak in the language of the people. Don't tell me these things." The old monk folded his hands across his chest, neither afraid nor angry. Hua That's face twitched. The disciple was not angry because of the master's words. Hua That frowned. "It's clear that the martial arts you demonstrated intentionally provoked this situation. Are you not afraid of losing face?" The old monk remained calm and said slowly, "Disciple, at the foot of the mountain, remember that you are from the 4 great families. Being a grand master is not just about showing off." Hua That feels that dealing with a demon is scarier than anything else. What's even more terrifying is his silence. His patience is admirable. The master calculates, the disciple examines, the old monk understands. The way of the righteous is to cultivate oneself. The challenger who enters this Buddhist sect is also a practitioner of Hua That's two-handed cultivation. Whenever one's mind is devoted to the Buddha's name, how to cultivate, please seek the guidance of the elder, the venerable monk, to go elsewhere. Calmly said, cultivation relies on the individual, but you must consult the monks. Hua That's face is calm, showing respect. This stinky monk doesn't talk to anyone, right? I don't want to accompany Shu Qian. Suddenly, an unnamed flame rose from the bottom of his heart. The old monks from all over the world went up, but as soon as he arrived at the screen suddenly appeared and blocked his way. Shu Qian really wants to jump up and curse at his mother. If it weren't for everyone in the capital now watching him maintain his image and not being able to leave, Shu Qian would sneer and turn around, holding down the handle of the knife. "I have an idea, but I don't know the 4 great ranked sky masters. Can you lend me a knife?" The old monk's expression naturally showed me the Amitabha Buddha's knife. I have a strong obsession that has already been manifested before the enlightenment of the Bodhisattva Wen Yin. A fierce touch of Nidong's echo echoed in my ear. Before the completion of the path, Bodhisattva Yipan displayed his obsession, which was at least 3 horses. Shu Qian sprinted and knelt in front of the old monk, licking his face and asking the master, "Where did we go just now?" The old monk honestly replied to the benefactor, asking Ping monk to take a knife. Shu Qian Kiki pretended to be angry and criticized several times, saying, Does Buddhism only know how to fight and kill? Does Buddhism all rely on fighting and killing? Master, can we talk about a penny? Outside, Nangong Xiaoro let out a cold snort. He was aware of the current situation. If he were to use violence to crack this level, he would probably avoid reading books. Undoubtedly, at this moment, the delicate young girl in Huang's granary, Huo Hong Da Hu, was more like a bald donkey. Du Na Han was originally unwilling to react, but the knowledge questioned as a princess from a ceremonial country explains that the third door has no content. The great teacher's words just said, the high officials and the officials have to advance. Why only one silverla has appeared, enough to show off. The faces of you are thicker than the city wall. No wonder 20 years ago during the Seagate campaign, they could win. It was truly dependent on the great monk's allies, not even able to break through the walls of those great teachers. No matter how Xu Yinghua deals with Buddhism, he can refuse or agree to lock him in a secret realm until he admits defeat. With just one sentence, he wakes up Lang Heng and says that there are only a few people in his dream. Isn't this a trick? If you want to fight, you will be invincible in 100 battles. Wen do wu do fo men, although you may say what this is, master do evil, with his hands clasped together, reciting the Buddha's name, this is just a faint statement. The empty question is also a question about the ever-changing nature of life. Murphy always has a question waiting for everyone. He heard the shameless sound of a handsome scholar named Shi Shiren, who walked down and then carried him to the square to watch a group of monks sneer and say, no wonder you monks are all bald. It turns out that you have hidden your hair in your heart. On the surface, the scenery worships the moon, but inside, there is a sense of helplessness. The dog is shameful. Jin Chung monk frowns. This benefactor, Shu Erlang, speaks up and criticizes who is your benefactor. Shu will not give you a single coin. If you see someone, it is shameful to call him a benefactor. Thich Ton Tang was speechless, couldn't speak. Nhi Lang continued to increase his power. What do you mean welcome a high monk? Your monks are also the Buddha's thoughts before he leaves. Ton Ton is angry with the head teacher and says he's a book reader. Opening his mouth, closing his mouth, only knows how to curse people. This is the reading person of Dai Fuang, Hua Tan 9, who has never cursed anyone. Because I don't curse people. Why can't you be satisfied? Several monks came from afar to suggest a duel. Dai Fuang is a ceremonial country, only sending out a silverla has given you enough face. How thick are your faces? The walls of the capital are thicker than the city walls. It's hard to believe that 20 years ago during the Seagate campaign, they could win. It was truly dependent on the northern and southern allied forces. The barbarian tribes have never been able to break through the walls of those great monks. The Jincheng monk suddenly stood up and glared angrily at Yuan Dang, who was imposing and harmful. How could this be? Xu Xinian, with a spectacular and fearless smirk, said that he had run away from a non-Jincheng monk who controlled the 4 major levels without any other women. His expression suddenly froze. Master Du Evil calmly said, Jingshen, you are in a state of turmoil. Jingshen, the monk, has a pale face and trembling hands, saying, bald disciple. Xu Xinian chuckled and felt great satisfaction in his heart. After finishing his pleasure, he turned back and looked at Xu Xinian one by one. Although it may not sound pleasant to hear the phrase appreciating the difference in the middle, the Buddhist monk didn't say anything and was very pleased about it. Moreover, their self-proclaimed identity statement was no matter what. Hua Tan 9 cannot stay in the main hall, equivalent to the new tool of the noble family's lady. The lady praised his intelligence. He saw through the club members, scolding them, saying that it was just an appearance. The real purpose is to disturb the monks' minds intentionally, provoke them. Then, with a mental attack, he expressed anger and then launched a strong attack at the venerable Buddha under the Hua Kyn tree, engaging in a debate with the elder. Suddenly, he asked the elder, are you saying you are a bodhisattva? Seal of approval, appropriate approval. The elder replied, the highest realm of Buddha is Hua Kyn. Hua Kyn asked in return, what is the highest realm of Buddha? The elder remained silent for a while. I don't know, but Bannon feels it is Shakyamuni, so he is demonstrating it to me. From then on, Lu Li Buddha's mind no longer violates the Buddhist principles. Hearing this, Hua Kyn was silent, showing that he had no knowledge of Buddhism in this world. In contrast, he had some understanding of Buddhism in his past life. There is a significant difference. The most obvious is that this world has no Buddha like Shakyamuni, only a Buddha named Hua that in. He frowned and asked, why is the highest realm of Buddhas called Buddha, while others are not called Buddhas? The elder replied, in the Buddhist sect, there are bodhisattvas and arhats, but only Buddha is of the highest virtue. Therefore, Buddha is the highest realm of Buddhas, the unique existence. Buddha is the only one of this kind. Hua Tayan said, The Lahan and Bodhisattva may not necessarily be able to achieve the highest goal. The venerable monk shook his head, saying, "You are not a monk. You are not the disciple of the Buddha. Before you became a monk, why are you so angry? The tea master is the one who reads books, showing contempt. I have never cursed anyone. Because I curse not a person. Why not be convinced?" The monks from afar suggest a duel. The old monk said faintly that, "Benefactor, you can see why the Bodhisattva is Arhat Bodhisattva and why Arhat Buddhism is the fourth level of asceticism to increase the level of people who promise red wishes. Red wishes are closely related to the fruit flavor. Xu Zhaohong's volunteers got Arhat, and 1/3 of Arhat was the sand thief, followed by Buhan and all Arhat. Once the position of Luohan was condensed, Xu Qian, who could not be advanced, was stunned. After a long time of silence, the amount of information in this passage is too large. It turns out that Bodhisattva and Arhat are basically irrelevant. They are all upgraded from the 4th grade ascetic monks. After the 4th grade, there are 2nd or 1st grade diamond mirrors. The 3rd grade diamond mirror belongs to another Buddhist system, and Xu Qian's mind flashes with a spiritual light. The 8th grade, 5th grade, monk, and 3rd grade diamond Nima. No wonder Master Hengyuan stands strong, but he is only the 8th grade of a warrior monk because his next grade is the 3rd grade diamond mirror. In addition, it is no wonder that the 2nd grade is Arhat and the 1st grade is Bodhisattva, while the Buddha belongs to supergrade. The reason for this fate is that once the fruit position is determined, it cannot be changed. Therefore, the world of Buddhism does not have a lot of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in previous lives. In this world of Buddhism, there is only one Buddha, and that is the Buddha of this world, not the small Buddha. Watanan smirked, his mouth curled up, from a slight smile to a big grin. From a big grin to laughter, he laughed, bending forward and backward, laughing wildly. Everyone outside was confused, looking up at the Buddhist disciples under the Bodhi tree. Hua Kyn asked, "What is he laughing at? Is he crazy?" Veen Gun furrowed his brows, turned his head, swept his eyes, only to find Tian Chin not drinking, his expression serious, looking at the old monk under the Bodhi tree. Hua Kyn asked, doubting everyone's intentions. "What's so funny?" Master Hua Kyn's face was arrogant and proud. "I laugh at the narrow-mindedness of Buddhism. I laugh at the deception of the Buddha. I believe that Buddhist teachings are profound, that bodhisattvas are compassionate to all. Now I realize it's just some monks being selfish and self-interested." Hua Kyn couldn't believe he was saying these words. Hua Kyn spoke loudly, "You know that Buddhism is noble. Why do I come to tell you that? Because you, in Buddhism, are just a small Buddha. You think the external world is angry, while inside the monks are resentful, curious about this strange phenomenon they've never heard of, a small Buddha's teaching. Do you also have the great Buddha's teaching, or is it just a martial artist who knows what teachings and still classifies between great and small teachings?" Watanan asked the master. "Where are you from?" The monk replied, "Western region." The elder mindfully named the Buddha. The core essence is liberation, suffering, Wadadan, transcend Tao. This is the essence of the Buddha's practice. Just for the sake of national dignity, it is also a disadvantage for oneself. How could this be disadvantageous to others? The elder was shocked, lost in thought, and later asked. The master says this is the teaching of small doctrine, while that is the teaching of great doctrine. Wathichan laughed heartily. "You are not a Western monk. You are a 9 regions monk. You are a monk of the world. You are a monk who practices renunciation. It is not because of personal liberation from suffering, but to wish for the salvation of all beings from suffering." 400 years ago, why did the Confucianists want to destroy Buddhism? Not the Buddha, but the Buddhist monks, the small doctrine Buddhism, the final limit of one sect. Only the great doctrine Buddhism can enlighten sentient beings. The great doctrine Buddhism, the master's breathing became intense, no longer detached, no longer calm, no longer afraid, his voice clear. How does the great doctrine Buddhism work? Hua Kyn pointed to heaven. Why is there only one Buddha outside of Buddhism? The monks looked sternly, including the old monk inside. All the monks were intense. Hua Kyn took a deep breath, slowly said, "All beings in the world are Buddhas. The 3 worlds have countless Buddhas. This is the great doctrine Buddhism, based on what that the world has only one Buddha." Tai An's words were like thunder in the clear sky. All sentient beings in the world are Buddhas, monks and all are like illusions, like stone statues. I am practicing the small city Buddha Dharma. It turned out that I am practicing the small city Buddha Dharma, and all sentient beings can become Buddhas. Suddenly, a monk went crazy and rushed towards the crowd with a frantic expression, shattering the Buddha's heart. The Taoist monk stood with his hands folded in front of his chest. His voice thundered like a morning bell. But the monk's mind was chaotic. The Buddha's mind was shattered. The monks were like being ruthlessly hit by a stick. A figure appeared brightly. Then with a loud crash, he kneeled down, his face still contorted in agony, but no longer resisting. Fong Ma had just experienced something that normal people do not understand when faced with sudden madness of the monks. The old monk under the Bodhi tree kept chanting the Daitan Buddha's teachings for a long time. After his awakening, he had a smile of enlightenment on his face, the entire body's Buddha energy circulating, thanking the host for the explanation. Perhaps the monk had finally reached enlightenment. Never had he imagined that one day he would reach enlightenment. The monk continued, back then, the written seal was still a source of suffering. There were doubts as to why he could not become a Buddha, keeping this thought hidden for countless years until the monastery advanced. He reached enlightenment. In this world, there is only one Buddha, and that is the Daitan Buddha. Therefore, he displayed his bodhisattva's fruit. The old monk stared intensely at Hua Qian, as if seeing through him to the distant west, where he had lived for many years in seclusion. From beginning to end, he never thought about how he could become a Buddha, nor did he understand why he could not become one. Finally, he clasped his hands to his chest and said to himself, I am the Buddha, that is, the Amitabha Buddha. Thank you for the guidance. At last, he had awakened. The levels of Buddhas are irrelevant. Hua Qian earnestly spoke, the Buddha's kindness is not my merit. His words indicated a breakthrough, but enlightenment could only be achieved through one's own accumulation and insight. On the peak of the wine tower, Sun Nguyen asked Master Hang Veen what they were talking about, but Hang Veen seemed to be muttering to himself in the mist, admiring the flowers in the mist. Hua Dai Nyan clarified a little. Tell me clearly. Sun Nguyen accused Hua Tan Nyan of influencing the monks with his words. The group's discussion seemed to have gone beyond the test. Nguyen Nguyen looked at the figure of Hua Qian, whose expression was extremely complex. Hua Qian seemed pleased with this challenge. Was he breaking through this barrier, or was he entering the temple on the mountain top? Suddenly, a loud voice echoed, reaching even Fat Sun. What is the Daitan Buddha's teaching? Hua Qian frowned, hearing the voice of the fierce Lahan. Hua Qian humbly asked the master, what is the Buddha's fierce teaching? The master replied, Sin, who lived 720,368 years before the Buddha, did not become a Buddha. 3,491 years after the Buddha, there was no Buddha. In the tone of the fierce master, there was a question. Where did the Buddha come from? Everyone can become a Buddha. Hua Qian pondered for a moment. Why had the Daitan sect not appeared after 3,491 years of existence in this world? In the voice of the fierce master, there was a challenge. Fat Da said, wherever there is strength, wherever there is a realm, who holds the big fist is the elder. Therefore, the suppression of ideas is manifesting in our world, where everyone is a mortal body, and conflicting thoughts clash incessantly. Different environments lead to different directions of development. In the eyes of the monks, the Buddha is the Buddha, not a Buddha. This kind of thinking is truly laughable. These words are difficult to read, except for the monks outside, no one understands. The fierce master could not help but say, where is the laughter? You must clarify. Hua Qian showed disdain, naturally finding it amusing to speak in the language of the scholar Tu Thien Kiem. Jian is the highest artificer, but the highest artificer is not Jian. It may be possible to achieve common understanding, but in the eyes of the Buddhist sect, the Buddha is Shakyamuni, not very funny, not very strange, right? And it's not just one person. The Buddhist monks and nuns cannot refute at the moment, although what they said is truly the great heresy of Buddhism. Shakyamuni is the Buddha, the founder of the sect, the only Buddha they want to worship, the only one, a high-ranking deity. Isn't it the only Buddha? But what Hua Dian said is really reasonable. He continued, so there is a question I want to ask the elder. What exactly is a Buddha? Is it a method to gain power or a way to gain evil? The elder's expression remains serious as usual. After careful consideration, I wanted to say that the two invigilators, Shu Qian, spoke decisively, so I said there is a difference between Mahayana Buddhism and Hinayana Buddhism. Guangxin building Bagua platform firmly and regretfully patted his forehead. Whispering softly to the point where the Turtle Lord dares to say anything, Emperor Jing of Yuan turned his head and asked Jian Zheng what you said. Jian Zheng awkwardly smiled and His Majesty Shu Qian gave you a square gift. Wei Yuan slowly stood up. He seemed to have thought of the arrival of Shu Qianan and Chen Sheng under the Bodhi tree, who were whispered in a low voice by the royal capital. Immediately, the goal of every cultivator in Buddhism was to establish themselves as respected and prioritize their grades. It's all about fruity arhat or bodhisattva. To be honest, it's about crossing the well to help all living beings. It's also about waiting behind the evil master. I said that the evil master suddenly half appreciates the combination of his hands. It is about accepting the wa that and to continue. Therefore, taking benefit as honor, taking great as the root, taking Buddha as the Buddha, we call this a small Buddha Dharma. A monk objected, if this is a small Buddha Dharma, this is indeed absurd. Wa that and calmly replied, you will feel absurd because you are a small Buddha Dharma at heart, still taking great as the root, this is my benefit. But if the star is taken as the root, Du Ak Lahan clasped his hands to his chest, silently reciting the phrase Sin Fat's surname, please advise. But if the star is taken as the root, Du Ak Lahan clasped his hands to his chest, silently reciting the phrase Sin Fat's surname, please advise. Wa that and slowly said, do you feel that the world only has one Buddha? The Buddha is Buddha. Humans cannot become Buddhas, they can only become bodhisattvas or arhats. But don't forget, Buddha is the Buddha. Was Buddha born as Buddha? I think everyone has Buddha nature, just obscured by worldly matters. But after cultivation, one can enlighten oneself. Everyone can become a Buddha, a compassionate Buddha. A loud rumble, suddenly a thunderous thunder in the sky. People suddenly discovered the evil master's whole body glowing with golden light. In the Buddhist sect, this is the enlightenment of the sword, the compassion of the Buddha, the evil master immersed in a miraculous state, as if in a trance, with a sound in his heart crying out, why is Buddha Buddha? Why can't we be Buddhas? Not everyone can become Buddhas. The Buddha truly can only be the standard of strength. The Buddha truly can only be Buddha. How narrow is this scale? Only everyone can become Buddhas. Only the Jojo can truly shine with Buddha's light. This is truly the great Buddha Dharma. The great Buddha Dharma appears, new thoughts and schools emerge. There is no enlightenment like that of monks, but there is their own enlightenment, even feeling vast and clear, seeing the difference in Buddha Dharma. Seeing new realms of thought, Gai Win muttered each syllable, enlightenment, 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 Vong Tu Fu. Excited and crazy, very cautious, looked deeply into Hua the An's eyes, who then articulated the great Buddha Dharma. If Du Ak Lahan does not enlighten, then that's it. If enlightenment comes back to the western regions tomorrow, it will definitely commend the great Buddha Dharma. This will surely lead to conflicting views on the size of Buddha Dharma. By then, discussions will be light, and once divisions arise, it's all trivial. The more he thought about it, Devine de couldn't maintain composure, agitation, joy, and a crazy smile, because he said firmly, Hua Qian had truly given a grand ceremony to Wu Vien. He sounded almost intoxicated with thoughts of the great Buddha Dharma, the grand Buddha. We can also become Buddha martial artists, even bodhisattvas. Everyone can become Buddhas to enlighten all sentient beings, the triad of compassion. Fat Bu opens his eyes wide, looking towards Hoai Khan. He knows very well. But what's important is that everyone can become Buddhas, and Vo Tang can also become Buddhas. The people can all become Buddhas, disseminate compassion to all sentient beings. Tri Tin Te Fat opens his eyes wide, looking towards Hoai Khan, who knows very well. Thank you, Shu Tian, for helping me understand the great Buddha Dharma. Shu Tian, you are truly an extraordinary teacher. You have succeeded at the third gate. A man in scholar's attire at the top of the square spoke hesitantly. Just now, the great Buddha seemed to say that Shu Tian will be our teacher. Throughout history, martial artists have always been compared according to major systems. There is no example of a criminal martial artist, who is rough and only knows to use violence to destroy. Besides being useful in battle, they have no other use. On the contrary, they are the cause of social unrest. And now, a second-grade Buddhist monk even said that a martial artist will be our teacher. This statement, heard by the martial artists, made them feel proud and unable to suppress their excitement. Gradually, the martial artists began to go crazy. The entire Jiang Ho Dai Fuang should remember the name Shu Qian. This name is truly a real dancer. When I return home, I will announce this widely. This time coming to the capital was not in vain. Expanding knowledge. Somewhere, a woman still retains her charm. Turned around, looking at his proud disciple. Wrong, respectfully speaking, wrong, you have investigated, Mr. Shu is a regular guest of Fuang too. Wrong was a little surprised, looking at the teacher. What do you want to say, beautiful? The woman gently said, we martial people do not care about status. Wrong, with your beauty, could be a wife to Mr. Shu, but in terms of status, it's not enough. But as a concubine, there is no problem. Wrong blushed, embarrassed. She wanted to refuse, but the man was too dazzling. So dazzling that it made even a beautiful woman like her unable to control her emotions. Shu Qian continued, stepping forward without hindrance, entering the small courtyard outside the independent pagoda. This was a lonely independent pagoda. Turning to look at his proud disciple, Nung, oh, you have investigated, Mr. Hua is a regular guest of Mr. Fuang. Nung Nung, a little puzzled, looked at the teacher. What do you want to say, handsome? The woman gently said. We martial people do not care about status. Nung Nung, with your beauty, could be a wife to Mr. Hua, but in terms of status, it may be a bit difficult, but as a concubine, there is no problem. Nung Nung blushed, embarrassed. She wanted to refuse, but the man was too dazzling. So dazzling that it made even a beautiful woman like her unable to control her emotions. Shu Kaiyan continued, stepping forward without hindrance, entering the small courtyard outside the independent pagoda. This was a lonely independent pagoda. In this pagoda, there will surely be a final gateway. Duak Lahan had said that if you step into this pagoda and still do not resolve to cultivate according to the Buddha's teachings, then consider Buddhism a failure. Hua Qian suddenly remembered the 108 techniques that the artist Gao Fong had taught. By doing so, he had tainted his soul, his whole body covered in a different color of royalty. Only when he became an old man before his time was he satisfied when he pushed open the pagoda door and stepped inside to see this scene. Duak Lahan clasped his hands in front of him when he entered the pagoda. Even a stone can transform. In the pagoda, there are a total of 2 Buddha statues. The statue on the left is the Golden Kang Buddha. The lion's secret of the Diamond Sutra lies within this lifetime. If you can understand this sutra, you can attain the diamond indestructible of the Buddhist sect. Hua Qian immediately looked closely at the Golden Sutra within the Buddha statue. If I can cultivate this secret, as a 6th-grade martial artist, I will become invincible. With this secret, my final weakness will be overcome after each strike. After striking, tired, he threw the knife to the ground and said to the enemy, "Come and fight me." Hua Qian was both nervous and excited. Everything was as he had predicted, hearing Duak Lahan's words outside. Their eyes shone, looking at the Buddha statue. They suddenly enlightened, understanding the greatness of the diamond indestructible. They abandoned their intent to kill, accepting the Buddhist teachings. Feeling satisfied with the disciples and grandchildren, the talented Buddhist disciples are naturally gifted. Nam Moak Di Da Fat, Thien Ho Fat Mon. Everyone was angry, but Man Sin wasn't. Because everyone was focused on looking closely at Hua Qian, they held their breath in anticipation. Because everyone was focused on looking closely at Hua Qian, they held their breath in anticipation. Everyone was focused on looking closely at Hua Qian, they held their breath in anticipation. Gradually, the martial artists began to go crazy. The entire Jiang Ho Dai Fuang should remember the name Shu Kaiyan. Hua Qian suddenly became refreshed, forgotten, still with a determined attitude. After this kneeling, he would become another part of himself, a Hua that and who honored and worshipped the Buddha. Outside the pagoda, the Buddha's hand pressed down from above once again. The entire structure on Hua that N's body made a sound like a bubble bursting. In particular, the spine protruded, always deeply penetrating through flesh and blood, feeling like a mountain on his shoulders, pressure flooding like a huge wave, forcing him to kneel. Hua Qian felt tense, unable to blame. He felt that there was no way back. After this bow, he would become another part of himself, a Hua that and who honored and worshipped the Buddha. Outside the pagoda, the Buddha's hand pressed down from above once again. The redwood library of Trong Ung Lo was suspended on the top of the bronze statue, which suddenly shook violently. This tremor was extremely strong, as if something wanted to escape from within. Li Mo Bok frowned, not believing this. There was someone inciting the power of human life. Tru Tu bowed his head, asking the senior to be silent. The tremor in the redwood box inside the din and became stronger. The 3 great Confucians immediately struck the solemn atmosphere together with Tru Tu, who, united, pressed down the redwood box, bowing their heads for calm. A loud boom. The redwood box shattered in the din and, emitting a beam of light. A sudden beam of light shot out, piercing through the temple roof and rising into the sky. Tru Tu followed it out of Dinan, his eyes following the beam. Passing beyond the mountains. Disappearing into the sky, that's the direction of Tonkin. Duak Lahan applauded, bowing, Amitabha Buddha. Unexpectedly, Chuang Quan Chu had a deep and concentrated demeanor, certain that after joining the religious order, the hearts and minds of the monks would be even purer. Mr. Hai happily turned his head to adjust a bit because he had raised such an excellent martial arts talent. Later, anyone who trained in martial arts would always praise him. Mr. Hai laughed heartily in his solemn tone. Let go of the non-human tunes for the past few years at the remote wine shop, admired the extremely skilled Vo Kung Thien of Kim Kwang, then Kong Chun Wen Chan patted Dai Kai Do on the back, saying, "Okay, find Master Tun Nagi Nyan later for the request of the invincible diamond. The path of your warrior monk can go further, even reaching the diamond third rank, it is not impossible. The words of the elder and Hua that resounded in everyone's ears through the wisdom of Chun Wen Chan and Hang Veen. It was not difficult to predict the next rank of the 8th-element warrior, which is the diamond third rank, in a jubilant atmosphere. The old man suddenly said, "Don't rejoice too soon, there is still a Dharma form." At this moment, evil Tao Arhat is chanting the Buddha's name, his voice spreading a smile across the battlefield. The Dharma Combat Tournament. According to legend, when Buddhists arrived at the Western residence, it was occupied by a tribe called monks. The monks were as fierce as bloodgrass, and in order to compete for territory, they slaughtered the Buddhists. Buddhists knew that they had been meditating on their land for 3 days and 3 nights. Accepting being beaten and not retaliating, the Tulu tribe was immediately slaughtered, only to see a knife shed tears like cutting blood, but a common voice came from flesh and blood, the 2 knives shining like gold. After 3,600 cuts, Buddhists freed themselves from their daily form of spiritual phenomena. During the 3 days and 3 nights of cutting, they understood their great consciousness and gave up the idea of killing. At the same time, the diamond statue with its eyes closed, and eyes open, in an instant, the power of France rose like a collapsed sea, attracted by an indescribable force, devouring Shu Qian. Hua Kyin saw the endless light of the Buddha, a light that did not bring a sense of tranquility, but a sense of unreasonable dominance. Immediately, he placed his hand on the hilt of the sword, drawing a black and gold sword from the eyes of everyone. However, he did not intend to commit murder, instead placing his other hand forward. It is about self-discipline. At that moment, Watanan woke up in shock. "Don't take it off. I don't have hair. If I take off my wig, Mr. Batlak will be disappointed." The laughter of the evil monk resounded, conveying a sense of satisfaction and joy. Visiting the Grand Library was truly the wisest decision he had ever made in his life. Once enlightened, he became a Dharma. Feeling satisfied with the talented descendants of the Buddha's disciples, Nam Moa Di Da Fat, Thien Ho Fat. People were angry, but Man Sin was not. Everyone focused on Hua Kyin, holding their breath. Because everyone recognized that Hua Kyin was struggling and fighting against the inner battle. The old lady always reminded the little hand tightly grasping the robe to persevere, observe diligently, and quickly turn around, saying, "Persevere." The master would not allow him to abandon the Buddhist path to become a disciple of the Buddhist family. Even if he had to use any means, he had to stop. Perseverance, filial piety, supreme respect. Only one person, Yen Lak, need not worry about the breath of perseverance. How can the Buddha's path welcome him? He had to stop. Even if he lost his destiny, Fankan Chan Han Supreme did not worry. Fankan, in his old age, tightly grasped the wine cup, gently lifting it as if storing the strength of the wine in the cup silently. The light draws the mountains and rivers, drawing the words of the morning light to the people. But at this moment, Zhang Xian suddenly stopped, looking into the distance towards the Unlao library. His brow furrowed, thinking that someone was acting. Biu Biu shouted, "Ga no Tai, resist him." At this moment, Du Ac Lahan frowned and said that only when entering the Buddhist sect could one escape from the sea of suffering, live forever, and save others. Clearly, there was a Dai Fat Can. Why cling to such an unreasonable thing in the temple at Fat Gun? Hua Kyin suddenly received his own will, resisting joining the Buddhist sect and opposing the thoughts poured into his head. But his resistance seemed to anger the foggy Buddha statue at Fat Sun, trembling. A Buddha statue's heart stands between heaven and earth, gradually forming a Buddha statue in the sky, looking intently towards the temple and then slowly reaching out with a giant Buddha hand pressing down. Inside the temple, he suddenly felt a heaviness like a mountain on his shoulders, engulfed in pressure like crashing waves, forcing him to kneel. Hua Kyin felt tense, unable to blame or resist. He felt there was no turning back. After this moment, he would become another part of himself, a Hua Tan and who honored the Buddha and worshipped the Buddha. Outside the temple, the Buddha's hand pressed down from above once again. All the muscles on Hua Tan An's body made a sound like bursting water bubbles, especially the spine protruding vaguely, always able to penetrate through flesh and blood. He buried his head deeper, unable to stand up straight. The only thing unchanged was his knees not bending, and Hua Tan An's face turned red. His eyes were swollen red, his face twisted. He opened his mouth firmly, saying, "No blame, even if I believe in the Buddha, it is also my choice. I cannot be subdued by anyone." The Din and Great Hall at Ung Lo Library hung the verdict at the Din and red wooden box on the copper statue, suddenly shaking violently. This shaking was extremely powerful, as it seemed like something wanted to burst out. Li Mo Bok stared in disbelief at this, not convinced, as someone was stimulating the power of human life. Dean Zhao furrowed his brows and lowered his head to ask the senior to remain silent. The vibration of the redwood box in the palace became stronger and stronger. The three Confucian students immediately put on a solemn atmosphere and, together with Dean Zhao, pressed down the redwood box. He bowed to ask the senior to remain silent. With a loud bang, the red wooden box shattered inside Dinan, emitting a bright light. A sudden beam of light burst through the roof of the temple and flew into the blue sky. The principal Tru Tu followed it out of Dinan, his eyes following the light, surpassing the mountain range. Disappearing into the sky, that is the direction of Tonkin. On the square, Due Si Lahan clapped his hands and bowed, Adi Da Fat. Unexpectedly, the Chuang Quan master presided over his meditation very deeply. Certainly, after joining the Buddhist religion, the heart of the Buddha became even clearer. Looking at his daughter-in-law Du Evil Arhat, he said with eyes Mengren the slave stood still and accidentally walked out of the lotus tent floor. Princess Gud shouted not to kneel in front of the old scale gang on the lotus tent. An old man in uniform stood up and shouted with a trembling voice that the hero's young liver was cautious and moved his strength. Tan Zhongsheng, Qing Yizhong was not the person who could write such words. Gi the Lavuan stood upright, not allowing kneeling. Standing in Wei Win's arms of Vi Vien Dead Din, suddenly, Dai Quach Wei Win lightly patted his head and continued speaking. Vong Tu Fu stood up and said, not kneeling. At this moment, it is like lighting a candle, and the people around are jubilant. Suddenly, Dai Quach Vien rubbed his head and continued speaking in place of him. Not seeking, then stand up. Vong Tu Fu stood up, Lang Sin Dai Fuang did not seek, then stood up. This sentence is like lighting a candle, and the crowd is excited. Everyone raised their fists, shouting, not kneeling. More and more people are shouting. Hua Qian seems to have felt the order of life, a sudden bright idea entering his mind. This idea, fragile yet great, echoed in him for a moment. Hua Qian's eyes glowed like never before, like a lost cultivator in the darkness finally seeing the morning light. He tensely shouted the heart's voice of thousands of people in the capital. I, Hua Qianan, do not blame at the same time. A pure beam of light pierced through space with a resounding sound, carrying an unbeatable power that struck directly at the Buddha's mirror. The light shone on the Buddha's figure, which seemed to applaud and touch the light in secret. A moment of pride. The light melted the Buddha's figure, then turned 90 degrees directly towards Hua Qianan. Hua Qianan smirked confidently like never before. The divine can come to all beings, anyone can become a Buddha. Why should I kneel before you after saying this? He calmly drew a strange-sounding knife and the Medding army statue shattered immediately, disintegrating all over the body. At the same time, golden waves burst into cracks, instantly exploding into dust. The landscape of the Buddhist world dissolved, with two figures falling down, one unconscious Tin Tu, the other Hua Qianan standing strong with a knife. Hua Qianan slowly surveyed the stage. Feeling heavy eyelids, he quickly pressed his hand against the confusion on his head, then fainted. Fainting under the glaring lights of the crowd was nothing unusual, but the confusion did not fall. It was his badge, at the top of Tik Lu Pavilion. His persistent demeanor no longer remains humble as before. He looked at the knife in Hua Qianan's hand in a perplexing way, saying, you also choose him high above the Tik Lu Tower. The emperor raised his hand to the sky and shouted, a man not worth it. For years, the capital has not seen such a talented young man. Besides the unbearable screams and enthusiastic dancing, defeating the guards of Hoai Khan, he is mine. He is mine. Hoai Khan looked at the unconscious Hua Qianan and listened. At that moment, Hoai Khan remembered Hua Tuan's actions from his appearance at an unknown place. Conspiring to harm the son of the Minister of War, he then joined a group to sever ties with the Silver Band. Completely eliminating hidden dangers, then joining the team to hunt down Nan La Ho Luo, taking responsibility for investigating the Suong Bo case almost single-handedly. Van Chao case investigation was nearly completed, with 400 rebels killed upon returning to the capital. There's always idle talk every 3 years, many times every 3 years, a family heir appears, inspiring the Vin Dai Fu but also representing the Four Heaven Sword and fighting against the Buddhist sect, twice decisively restoring the trust of the capital's people. A discussion to resolve the old monk's obsession under the Bodhi tree led to the monk Lu Han's 2 realizations of the Dharma Phap Phat Dai Tan. Then Princess Han Kuang arrived from afar, to destroy Lu Han's Buddha artifacts. Hoai Khan Princess. Never seen such an outstanding man, never seen in the joyful excitement of the capital's people, and amidst the enthusiastic cheers, everyone rejoices, but the main person, Wadadan, is ignored. Shui Erlang quietly passed by, helping the elder up and the younger brother thought. Finally, I faced everyone alone, putting Hua That on my back and walking towards the crowd. His eyes looked at Hua That tightly holding the engraved knife, which was a dagger. Shui Erlang, slightly jealous and unnoticed, snatched it from the elder sneakily. Do Ak Lu Han stood there soulless. Tan Sak and Master Transcend said, Venerable Master Vin Hua Di Chu Nyan is a genius bestowed by the heavens, the founder of the Dharma Fat Dai Thua. The Vin Master must take him back to the Western Ocean. Standing and looking at the distant figures of the sinister Arhat, the sinister Arhat pondered for a moment and could only let out a long sigh. It's over, it's over. Perhaps fate has not arrived yet. The town of Wall City refuses to lose its voice, but somehow always comes up with something. In the end, he chose silence. At the Han Academy, belonging to the imperial court, responsible for writing books, preparing orders, and conducting trial readings for the members of the royal clan acting as examiners. The three most prestigious positions in the court include the Court of Inspection of the Grand Historian and the 6 departments of the Royal Court, along with the Han Academy. In terms of status, the Han Academy ranks first because it also has another name, the Breeding and Development Camp. In the Grand Capital, all the capital governors come from the Han Academy. In other words, only those in the Han Academy can enter the imperial court, become scholars, and even capital officials. At this moment, in the imperial palace, officials are standing in the large corridor of the Han Academy. The Han army scolded the engineers that the victory in this battle was not due to the danger of the emperor, nor was it due to the court nurturing. Hua Nanla has merits. Look at what you write. Everyone has their origins from EG to compile history without knowing. The officials in the milk all changed color. Today's battle will surely be recorded in history and passed down in the future. What cannot be denied, but how it is written needs to be considered. Every time there is a great envoy of Yang Guowei in the history books, there will surely be positive notes. Symbolizing glory and honor, those in power want to make contact. At this time, the young border guard said, the fighting of Hua Nanla is only his effort, not related to the emperor. We, who are border guards in the Han Academy, not only writing history for the court but also writing history for the future. The Han army coldly laughed. Those who can become Han masters, the rewards of the emperor will become future officials. The sun shines on the future without limits. If the emperor is not satisfied, they will be assigned outside. That bright future will not only lose the sunlight but also the stars. The emperor's intention is not to change the scope of writing about the battle and the process of selecting the emperor's position. Regarding the praise of Hua Nanla, in the end, he is still young and has many opportunities in the future. Have the nobles understood right? After the words ended, the young border guard collected his eyebrows and slammed down. The loud thump echoed on his face. The Han army quietly retreated. The angry old chamberlain said, how dare you hit our Han Academy? The border guard pointed to the Han army and scolded, indeed, it is you. When the engineers from the Western Ocean enter the capital, there is Kim Kang and Nam Tan making thunder. And then in the north, the event mentioned North Tan. After that, there will be Thap Phuong asking about politics, then the sword technique and the door of Buddhism will duel. Hua Ti Ku has defeated the trust of Buddhism. If not, this time the court will lose face. This young hero is really admirable. If he were a scholar, I would be indifferent to him. He is a teacher, and other nobles would take what they can get. Just throw it away. Roll away from here. The Han Academy is not a place for you to run around like a dog. At the Lam Bao Quan, a woman dressed as a flower worker came to the yard in a gentle tone, saying, why didn't you participate in the battle today, national teacher? Have you watched the battle today? In a faint look, Lak Nok Hang, with a beautiful face, sat on the light cushion and said gently, I don't care about this. The woman laughed. Why did you miss the screen today? This month's battle is truly more fascinating than the theater games. I told you. She told Lak Nok Han about the vivid process of confrontation. Lak Nok Han frowned and asked, did he break the 8 forbidden rules with a single stroke? Mok Lan Kai nodded. Yes, indeed, he is powerful. Lak Nok Han pondered and thought that perhaps he had helped him, perhaps he had even used the power of hundreds to help him. Mok Lan Kai admired, although I still don't understand the great vehicle of Buddhism, it sounds powerful. Lak Nok Han glanced at a miraculous light in his mind. The great vehicle of Buddhism, he truly has invisible power. The eyes of Mok Lan Kai are bright. She keeps talking. These things are not the most interesting. The most interesting thing is at the 4th level. Lak Nok Han joked, Nan Kai Oi. Have you noticed something? You used to come to my place and always complained of being bored and wanting to go out to play, but now you no longer say you are bored. Not only that, in everything you talk to me about, you will mention Shu Qian. Mu Nan was stunned. He stared at Luo Yuheng for a moment, restrained his lively temperament, and became a refined and dignified lady. With a faint tone of estrangement, he remained calm to the point where you didn't mean anything. Luo Yuheng smiled and shook his head just to remind you. You have a husband. Your husband is the Waiwang Santing Wu, who guards the border and is not in the capital. But how many of his confidants and eyes are there in the capital? You know best that you should not have too much involvement with Xu Huayan, otherwise you will harm him. The disdainful words of Mok Lan. How could I be related to someone who frequently comes and goes from the Fong Sin world? Are you blaming me? Lak Nok Han Han too. On the other side, it's good. Our teacher is here to visit. It's just that the Dharma statue was damaged for no reason or that the treacherous government intervened. Mu Nanji quickly said, no, it's not. It was a clear light falling from the sky, breaking through the golden body Dharma statue and breaking through the Buddhist realm. I could see it clearly from a close distance at that time. That is a carving knife that falls on the side of one's ear, as if a thunderbolt's hand shakes and warm tea splashes out. His beautiful face is comfortable and solidified. The carving knife is not firm and cannot dominate the Confucian carving knife. Luo Yuheng, Chen Shengdao. Where is the carving knife? What happened behind it? Can you explain it in detail? Mu Nanji asked strangely. What's wrong with you? Luo Yuheng leaned forward and grabbed his hand. Hastily entering and coming out, hurry up. Mu Nanji quickly said that it was the carving knife that broke the Dharma phase. Luo Yuheng stared at him with burning eyes, whether the carving knife broke the Dharma phase and then left or stayed at the scene. Xu Qian, did he touch the carving knife? Mulan was extremely excited and raised her right arm to make a forward sliding gesture. Yes, he cut through the statue in the temple with a knife, just like me. When I spoke, the beautiful national teacher was stunned, and her eyes wandered like a jade beauty. Beauty is beautiful, but it lacks agility. In the middle of the night, a faint light that ordinary people cannot capture descended on a small courtyard in the outer city and fell into the room inside the courtyard. An old Taoist with graying hair suddenly woke up with a shock. Han Sheng felt helpless and even Yang Shen was unsheathed. In such a hurry, what's the big deal? Luo Yuheng didn't say anything and asked directly. The appearance of the Confucian carving knife made Taoist Jinlian hesitant or slightly nodding. Luo Yuheng's eyes were burning with excitement. I asked you who Xu Qian was, but after some questioning, Taoist Jinlian Chen Yin hesitated. He is just an ordinary person. Lak Nok Hang coldly smiled. How could an ordinary person use the No family's? Kim Lin Dao, the leader of the Kim Lin school, then said, when I first met him, I recognized that he wore a large robe, so I gave him a fragment of the emperor's book. Using his robe to avoid the pursuit of Tu Lin, I then investigated his identity and found something strange. Whether it's Li Du Chan, Sun Win Chan, or others, when I gave them a fragment of the emperor's book, they almost understood. Only Watanan was trying. His family life was truly nothing special, yet somehow lucky. Ha ha, luck can be due to good deeds and virtues or ancestral blessings. He had neither. A subsequent event made me realize his situation was not normal. Once this boy revealed that he always picked up coins every day, wanting to know the reason. Lak Nok Hang could not contain herself. This is not happiness. Kim Lin Dao schoolmaster gazed intently at him, with deep and bright eyes. Each word, each sentence is correct. This is truly the mark of someone with a special appearance. Although there were some suspicions when confirmed by the Kim Lin Dao schoolmaster, Lak Nok Hang's eyes narrowed in the West Hall. Watanan gradually woke up. He is tensed, unable to blame. He began to feel sore all over, especially in his face. He looked around, trying to understand, and then saw an old man in a dignified manner sitting at a round table in the living room. Wakayan suddenly sat up, also full of doubts. Who is this man? The old man stood up, smiling. You're awake. I am the principal of the Van Lock Grand Library, True too. Wakayan, after hearing this, assessed that the principal of the library was an outstanding Confucian scholar. Elegant and discreet, he is truly a noble and respectable person. But why is the principal in his room? True too did not answer and instead pointed to the table in front. Wakayan was confused. What does this old man want to do? He guessed part of the secret. This sword belongs to the Van Lock Grand Library. Besides Van Lock Grand Library, is there any other system capable of protecting justice and heroism like this? True too, the Confucian scholar. This sword is the treasure of the library. I have been holding it all this time and no one can take it away. That's why I had to wait for you to wake up, and also take this opportunity to ask you a few things. After finishing, he looked at the ancient sword with a dignified look, as if to say that holding it all this time, the young man did not understand what was going on. Watanan was puzzled because he was sure he couldn't keep it. Therefore, I decided to take it outside, But True Tu did not accept, instead pointing to the table in front. Hua Kyn was confused. What does this old man want to do? Immediately after, he realized what was happening, exclaimed, and placed the sword on the table. Zhao frowned and quickly lowered his head 3 times towards the knife. Then, he took out a wooden box from the book and put the knife inside. With a gentle smile, Ying Qian knew if she knew the source of the knife, and Shu Qian began to be confused. It was strongly speculated that Zhao Shou shook his head with Yisheng's sword, which was not a saint's sword. Shu Qian was surprised and opened his eyes wide, trying to speak, but he didn't know if the saint's sword was a saint. Can I touch this knife? I put it on social media before I even had a chance to take a photo. The one behind may use it, but cannot awaken it. Unexpectedly, it appeared today to help Hua Kyn. Hearing this, he looked intently at Hua Kyn, needing to say something directly to him. Hua Kyn felt heavy-hearted, waking up from bed, requesting guidance from the principal. In a small street on the outskirts, Lak Nok Hang kept shaking his head. 2 slender and delicate eyebrows suddenly opposed. Impossible. I have been in contact with him many times. If he has yin energy on his body, I cannot help but know how old Master Zeng may not know Taoist Jinlian's answer. If it is covered up, what will happen to fate? Now you go see Shu Qi's case. I didn't seem to realize anything unusual about him. Luo Yuheng took a deep breath. Your words hinted at corruption. Director Jinlian gently said, didn't you investigate Shu Qi's case? He's just one of their little people. My ancestors didn't have a very famous person. How could they tolerate this kind of yin energy? After thinking for a while, Luo Yuheng suddenly said, if it's a wizard, theoretically you can't see his source of blessings. The corruption plan is dangerous, and he doesn't want anyone to know. Others will never know what Taoist Jinlian said calmly. As far as you can imagine, I have thought of it myself. Not long ago, I discovered that his blessings had disappeared. The search for hidden witnesses of fate overshadowed his uniqueness. I knew right then that this matter was not ordinary. Hua Kyn is hiding a big secret behind his back. That day, I left the 2 court and went to the Quan Tin Tower, where I saw the Back Key Tower and met Master Lak Nok Hang talking to my Mu. When asked what he said, Lien Jin, the Taoist priest, asked Meimo and replied, water does not touch water. Your body is a person whose will falls into the hands of a beautiful woman. Since Shu Qian gritted his teeth and gave up the path of the dynasty's destiny, it is obviously inseparable from the sword god. Lien Jindao frowned. What does this mean? A few years ago, he pointed at my nose and condemned me as a beauty. He said that in the past 20 years, the tax and food of the Red Phoenix dynasty in various provinces have been deteriorating, and they have not received the pain of the people. You put all the blame on me and said that for the sake of my own cultivation, I lured the emperor to create chaos, leading to the king's leadership. Dean Jinlian was shocked to hear this news. If it weren't for the beauty, the country's problems were still continuing, and I suddenly realized that the fate of the dynasty was beginning to disappear. If no one has the ability to solve the right problem and first discovers and gives me a direct blow, I may have to wait for several years to discover. Director Jinlian reminds me not to say too much. This is the territory of the sword. Our conversations are always being eavesdropped. Meimo frowned and confidently said, of course, in my presence, he couldn't hear Director Jinlian's voice. This is not something he can or cannot hear. The problem is, I don't want to get involved in this chaotic situation. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, if Shu Qian really has yin qi, would you consider retiring with him? His thoughts became chaotic, but his first feeling was not against it. At the Sholian mansion in Shuzhou, he asked 2 questions. Do you know why the new Emperor Renkei's sword appeared? Why can't they use it except for Ashung, but cannot awaken him? Shu Qian shook his head and said, I am just a rough warrior. Taoist Zhou Shou said he will not hide it because his voice is not enough. This sword was carved by Emperor Ren with it, such as the spring and autumn Li Luo position. Only when someone concentrates their yin energy can they use it. The words of the Taoist finally answer this long-standing question that has been troubling him. As my cultivation level increases and I pick up more coins, fate is upgrading, not upgrading, but slowly reviving within me. The director gently waved his hand, with a mystical but practical breath, involving the 9 provinces with 3 issues. Firstly, Confucianism, secondly, the Sorcerer Master, and the final issue is the Tran World Monarch. The Tran World Monarch is not limited to Dai Fuang, but also involves the witch and Buddhist sects of Tai Nguyen, with the Mantu people from the south and north. Both cannot form an alliance. The face of Hua then becomes solemn, with a total of 3 issues. Confucianism is almost irrelevant to me, otherwise the director wouldn't need to avoid issues like that with me. Furthermore, if I were a member of the royal family, it would be extremely bad. Langnan and Hoai Khan may be my sisters, but Lin Lung's attitude shows that I could hardly be a member of the royal family. If not, he wouldn't need to flatter Hoai Khan, who is considered more important. Moreover, I don't see Lin and Hoai Khan wandering aimlessly every day. The relationship between me and Lin is getting stronger and not bad with Hoai Khan. I also become more confident myself. Later, if I advance to a marquis, I hope to marry a princess. Anyway, I can't have any blood relation with the royal family. Therefore, combined with the attitude and behavior in the past, I suspect that this issue is related to Su Thien Keen. It's uncertain if it's related to Keen Chung. Zhao seemed to have understood something, smiled happily and said, "Is there anything else you want to ask?" Hua Qian was immediately speechless. "What can I ask? It's better to ask the professor a question." Diem Thien Hua Qi is in the waist. But unfortunately, he only dares to avoid it in his heart. In reality, he can only accept and respond. "Thank you for the explanation." Zhao nodded and said, "My prince has been waiting outside for a long time, please invite him in." The prince has a question to ask. In a small house in the suburbs. Kim Lean leader smiled brightly and said, "In that case, just extinguish the night flame in the room and step onto the first floor, the matter will only be within sight." "Isn't it a great joy?" the leader added, "so my mask will only be within sight." Lak Nok Hang expressed dissatisfaction. Even if Hua Qian has increased his blood flow, is it stronger for the future Dia Dao and Chu Kai or not? Moreover, we have discussed the prolonged issue and agreed on the main issue. This made Kim Lean leader unable to refute. After thinking for a moment, the leader said, "So if you want to prolong the issue, maybe there should be a relationship first, right? Even though the male lineage has been passed down to your family, eventually you will have to reduce the inheritance due to your character. After extending with others, you can continue with others." Lak Nok Hang unceremoniously said, "The celestial white land does not need inheritance. Why is inheritance necessary?" Kim Lean leader smiled without saying a word. Although the celestial white land is vast on earth, it is difficult to avoid accidents. Therefore, there must be an heir. However, even though the female professor has come to an end, she is still just a woman who does not follow the path of emotions in the celestial land of Thien Tong. Sometimes a bit rebellious. Kim Lean leader smiled brightly and said, "You should leave early like this. Maybe in history books you will be better off." Lak Nok Hang coldly said, "Why is it that historical books only tell of women as disasters for the country and people, not realizing that the problem of evil comes from men? Those spineless penholders dare not anger the king, so they blame all faults on women. It's truly ridiculous. In the future, the emperor too will pass on the Tao of Nu Wei Trong Sin. He wants to become a world monarch for 9 generations. Even without the celestial Tong, he will still pass on the Tao. Those spineless penholders dare not anger the king, so they blame all faults on women. It's truly ridiculous. In the future, the emperor too will pass on the Tao of Nu Wei Trong Sin. He wants to become a world monarch for 9 generations. Even without the celestial Tong, he will still pass on the Tao. What does this have to do with me? Wei Yuan, the dog, saying I am the king, is pitiful. For years, I have told Emperor Nguyen Cam that the elixir is no longer as effective as before, but he still insists on taking a large pill, a small pill, not dropping half of my advice. The king is also pitiful, starting from where the Kim Lean school master first agreed with Lak Nok Hang, then everyone agreed that the 10th master was right. But the original deity wanted to use the king's power to suppress the fire, though unwilling, actually gave future cultivation more power. Unable to prevent the anger. Lak Nok Hang looked intently at him for a few seconds, then said, "Where does he come from?" Thinking about it, he got up to say goodbye and left, unexpectedly mentioning the end of the 36th year of Nguyen Cam. The wandering soul of the emperor's master fell into the capital, not thinking about cultivation every day, following the cat happily with the cats. I want to send greetings from the human world to heaven. This painting dominates Black Sun. When the dark painting disappears, the Kim Lean school master's younger sister doesn't want to talk. Unfortunately, Lak Nok Hang didn't intend to discuss with him, leaving only faint and disappearing lights. The Kim Lean school master felt helpless when he saw that it was a narrow-minded woman and remembered. In the next room, Hua Thatan left the room and passed by Hua Lin Wei. Surprised, she said, Big brother, are you awake?" Hua Thatan smiled and nodded to indicate his well-being. After speaking, he asked Chu Tai Vi, "Where does the girl Kai Vi come from? Did I attract her with a gem-like appearance?" Chu Kai Vi hurriedly replied and held a cake under her arm, saying, "I came here to convey a message from the teacher." After speaking, she waved to Hua Ti and to invite her over. He said to Vu Yu Din, "The teacher said you could request a royal iron voucher." Hua Kyn took a few seconds to realize what an iron voucher was. The official name is Dan Tu, The informal name is gold card, for avoiding death. I need that to do what? I exchanged a few thousand gold coins and then got promoted and received a promotion. Isn't that more interesting? And Hua Lin Wei, beside them, saw the intimacy between the two and patted the cheek, calling Hua Lin expressing that she was going to play with Sister Kai Vi, hearing her cute voice. Short-legged steps ran towards Kai Vi, bumping into her buttocks. Sister Kai Vi, let's go play. Hua Kyin saw this and could only go to the waiting room with Vong Tu. He told Vong Tu about the matter and observed his reaction. The team leader affirmed that I should request a royal iron voucher. What does that mean? Vong Tu nodded slowly and said, exactly, just with a royal iron voucher, all death penalties are exempt. Immediately after, decide without allowing anyone to hide. But by then, Hua That still did not fully understand the meaning behind the death penalty. But out of honor, he pretended to understand it. So that's the meaning of the iron voucher of Dan Chu. He thought, exchanging a gold card for avoiding death was also acceptable, and the fact that Chu Kai Vi was tasked to meet him had no reason. Furthermore, he is the second-ranked Yen disciple, facing many enemies, also considered part of protection. Hua Kyin and Vong Tu walked together in the hallway outside. Hua On-hai heard and looked back. He's awake. Hua On-hai quickly got up and bowed. Meeting the team leader. At that time, Hua On-hai introduced to Min Diem that this was the messenger of Si Loi Keen. The messenger dressed in a smile. General, are you well? If you need treatment, speak to my house, we will bring you to the palace for treatment. Hua That gently replied, thank you for your concern, sir, I am fine. Master Then Su smiled happily. Just right, we came from His Majesty's invitation to visit Hua On-hai. Hua On-hai has made great contributions to the court. His Majesty will definitely reward Hua Da, and sincerely saying this is the Emperor's appreciation has created an opportunity for this Mandarin. Chen Gagong warmly smiled, that's good over there. We are representing Your Majesty to visit Mr. Shu, who has made great contributions to the court. Your Majesty will definitely win the prize and reward Mr. Zu's wife. He sincerely said, this is Your Majesty's appreciation, giving me an opportunity to humble myself. The saying train a soldier for 1,000 days to use him in battle once is the way the dynasty trains its soldiers. Today, I have the opportunity to contribute to the dynasty. Therefore, General, please present the truth to the Emperor. I dare not bow my head to ask for rewards in the form of iron lists. After hearing this, the royal court thinks that my older brother truly understands himself. The iron list holds greater significance than gold and silver. Gold and silver only make my brother dance in the study, while the hand-woven silk fabrics make my mother and sister wear beautiful ao-dai dresses. There are more and more, but none are worth it. Second uncle only thinks of two words: glory and honor. From ancient times until now, without titles and without receiving an iron list, second uncle Chen lightly laughs. Without reporting to our family, we will relay second uncle's words to the higher officials. Indeed, Your Majesty, there are a few things that pique your curiosity. You ordered me to inquire about second uncle's wife. Second uncle Chen still smiles, but his eyes do not leave me. Second uncle has made a strong impression with his tactics, but his moves have exceeded the limits of the common people. Your Majesty is very curious about how he did it. Second uncle simply and shamefully stated that it was given by Evil N. He did not elaborate further because it suits Evil N's character. Being too clear would detract from its mystery. Those two strikes exceeded the limits of the common people. Your Majesty is very curious about how he did it. Shu Qianan succinctly explained, feeling ashamed, that Evil N bestowed power upon him. He did not elaborate further because it suits Evil N's character. Being too clear would be off-putting. Furthermore, he did not hesitate to consult Evil N for confirmation. This understanding is tacit. Evil N should still have those old silver coins. Minister Chen nodded slowly, unsurprised, and then asked about the Confucian carved knife. Before he could answer, Yun Lu Academy, 400 years ago, destroyed Buddhism. Currently, Hua Qianan could immediately regret his words of thanks. Immediately, with Principal Tran Kong calm looking at Principal Tru Tui Han, he immediately expressed thanks for helping. This is akin to using tricks in a contest. But the Buddhist sect is also unfair. Ha Kim Kwang officially entered and Master reminded to be calm and assess Di Sanguan's wickedness. He debated about Buddhism with Hua Qianan. Therefore, the Buddhists admitted defeat strongly without dying. It was just a light touch of the dagger. Tran Kong stood up and left. We understand, so I won't bother you, Mr. Qianan, anymore. Hua Qianan politely escorted him out. Watching him go far, he breathed a sigh of relief. In the palace, having just drunk medicine, he was meditating and heard a faint storytelling. He did not open his eyes, but Da Bao and Thich Lao Taijiam whispered for a servant to spread the word. warning that those scholars refused to correct their essays and even attacked him. The servant coldly said those crazy dogs were enough. Slowly and meticulously, Tai Jiam tempted and a matter Hua Nanla woke up. Tran Kong Kong brought him in, saying that Hua Nanla wanted an iron voucher from Dan Su Tuyen Vu. The king's eyes were full of dignity, saying that a few officials did not need gold, silver, or precious gems, just an iron voucher from Dan Su Tuyen. Tai Jiam chuckled softly. Mr. Qianan truly understood that this was a man of the king's caliber. Using it well, he had merited with the dynasty and was not complacent with his achievements. If he proposed an elevation in position, the king would be displeased. The king suddenly no longer hesitated. Regarding the young monk's awakening, Tran Xin was stronger than the scholars at the Han Lin Institute. He wanted this iron voucher to be precise, making it clear. The king quickly agreed because everything the Tai Jiam said was correct. The continuous conferment in a short period only occurred during times of war. Promotion was modest but very difficult. The king pondered for a moment due to a feeling as he ended his meditation. The appearance of the dagger was because Principal Tru Tui Han had assisted. The more he thought, the more uneasy he became, ordering to arrange for Bai Jialin Bao Quan to meet Lak Nok Han. Emperor Dik Vinda kept talking to himself about the royal teacher. This battle, the great saint had nurtured the country's reputation, believing it would not be long. The more he thought, the more uneasy he became, ordering to arrange the Bai Jialin Bao Quan to meet Lak Nok Hang. The Divine Translation King never stopped talking to himself about the court tutor. This match, the great saint had nurtured the country's reputation, believing that not long from now, Namjiang Mantu and Bak Phuong Mantu, along with the Vutan Phap, would know of this. The king of Dik Vinda continuously spoke to himself about the court teacher. This match, the great saint had nurtured the country's reputation, believing that not long from now, Namjiang Mantu and Bak Phuong Mantu, along with the Vutan Phap, would know of this. A white lotus appearing for a challenge would make everyone suspicious and cautious. The decree of Mai Dai Feng Quoc was more effective than Yang Tien Hon's appearance, but Hua Am fell down. The national instructor was not satisfied with what was going on. Speak up, we will definitely help the national teacher resolve it. Being a person who respects the Tao and steals the sect, Bean Gunda was almost never seen. Lak Nok Hang looked exhausted, as this was a dispute between celestial beings that he felt pressured about. Master Naeem Fat responded with the core essence of liberation, Ko Hai Wa that in Tran Sin Dao, this is the minor practice of the Buddha's teachings. Just for one's own dignity is also a disadvantage for oneself. The Venerable was shocked, lost in thought, and later asked, why does this woman refuse to lower her head? My biggest fear lies here. While thinking, I see Luo Yuheng shaking his head all the time to thank the emperor for his concern. The battle at Xian Road Academy has already begun. Do you know that this is a relic of a saint and a treasure of the academy? Is there any information about the internal workings of the commune? This time Luo Yuheng replied, why is the emperor so suspicious? Emperor Yuanju said that not everyone can use the sage's sword. Not to mention that Zhou Shui is of 3rd grade, and even Li Ming may not be able to use it, let alone Xu Qian, Luo Yuheng, who doesn't care. Although Zhou Shui is of 3rd grade, there are still 3 people of 4th grade in the academy, and their cooperation with the Wei Dao family is not difficult. Moreover, there is always a contradiction between Confucianism and Buddhism in the process of eliminating Buddhism, which is that the academy led by Shiyunlu Academy was able to take action. Although it was unexpected, it is also common sense that Emperor Yuanju undoubtedly expressed impatience with filial piety. Lak Nok Hang gently thanked, saying it's late, no need to see off the emperor. Veen Dinyat blinked and said, he has dismissed me. Compared to the one who gives rewards, going back into the palace, he was called into the study by Wan Yi Lang. What happened? Illustrator appeared mysteriously but not frightened. Therefore, it's not urgent. The accused criminal confidently stated that a man should not hesitate when there is an issue. Wan Yi Lang suddenly stood up and slammed the card on the table. Hua Qian received and opened the card, scanning it to understand why Wan Yi Lang had such a strange expression. The content of the card was an invitation for Wan Yi Lang to attend the literary conference. There is a very interesting sentence on it. Ta Mi Dong Vong invites the guest of honor, Vong Tran Ban Dai Phuong. Although still 4 words, due to the existence of the cultivation system, there are also outstanding female practitioners. Therefore, it is not uncommon for women to participate in the literary conference. Therefore, inviting you to attend the literary conference is reasonable. Hua That analyzed that you are a member of the Spring Association, so inviting you to attend the literary conference is appropriate. Hua Tan 9 coldly said that fools in power, like a battlefield, may have many fools taking advantage to rise. But Hoang Tai Fu is not among them. Vong Tu Fu is excellent in the palaces. Every action, every word, every gesture of his is worthy of our contemplation. Otherwise we want know how he died. Wei Vien's older brother is a person of Win Vien. Vong Tran Van and Win Vien are two strong tigers in the court. No concessions can be made. He invited me to the palace to attend the literary conference. Surely it is not as simple as it seems. I, Hua Tan 9, am a future open-minded member. Vong Tu Fu fears me and wants to kill me before I develop. But even when I achieve the gold medal, Vong Tu Fu wants to punish me, which is easy. The difference in position between him and me is too great. He wants to punish me entirely without any treacherous intentions. So, is his invitation really just a normal literary meeting? But if you think that the opponent is that simple, that Vong Chan Van is that simple, Xu Yi Lang looked sadly at Xu Dai Lang, furrowing his brows to ask. You did not say a word. Xu Qian frowned and replied, like this, you ask your colleagues in other departments if they received the invitation. If only I received it, then it is definitely dangerous. Xu Yi Lang pointed to the date on the invitation and said, I have thought about this issue, but unfortunately, there is no time. Tomorrow morning, I absolutely have no time to go and verify. But when he said this, he suddenly jumped up. I understand now, Xu Dai Lang said, with a cold face. Xu Yi Lang staggered slightly, feeling a cold breath. Vong Tu Fu did not give me the opportunity to react. If I do not go, he will look down on me. If I go, there will surely be schemes waiting on the ship. His arrogant demeanor does not bode well for my reputation. If I do not go, there will surely be schemes waiting on the ship. I will still be as bitter as before. Xu Dian turned and walked away according to her own thoughts. This issue cannot be resolved. Ni Lang decided to go by himself. Xu Yi Lang quickly prevented him. When will you come to Linam Nyat Dan Fool? Even after I have spoken so much, you still do not understand my intentions. I want you to come with me. Xu Qian resolutely refused. No, Ni Lang, you must remember that even though we are brothers, on the path of officialdom, you and I are not the same kind of people. You have your own path, your own direction. Do not have feelings for me. Ni Lang, being intelligent, quickly understood. You know that your brother is really warning you. You should not be involved with Wei Vien. One day, even if Wei Vien is overthrown, you will be affected, but the overthrowing of Wei Vien has nothing to do with Xu Tuan. Your role is only as a brother of Xu Thatan, not a subordinate of Wei Vien. Therefore, you will not be punished. Xu Tuan agrees with this viewpoint. In history, the families of famous masters did not always agree. They belonged to different factions. The benefit of this is that even if one family is affected, it is only a small impact. The next day, after the dawn, Xu Qian went to Toa Hua Qi Bao to report the situation to Wei Vien. However, to his surprise, Wei Vien did not ask about Kim Quangbat Bai and Kich Dao. After finding out that Xu Thatan was fine, he let him go to rest. Xu Thatan thought to himself, the Wei officer is just an ordinary person, not skilled in martial arts theory. Surely, he does not understand the inner workings, which is why he did not inquire further about Kim Quangbat Bai. Humph, except for Jan Din on the second floor, there is only me on the fifth floor watching them. After the bell rang, Sung Din Fong and some familiar colleagues came to find me. Everyone sat together, drank tea, ate peanuts, and chatted for a while. Then, everyone started to encourage Xu Qian invited everyone to dinner. Fong Shi Xu Qian vehemently objected. Everyone just keeps going out to eat these days. No one has seen my performance, have they? Under the Bodhi tree, the old monk teaches that the beauty of a sharp knife is not good for bone scraping. One day, only knowing how to dance, different signs on the body. You stop for now. Why drag me into this? Everyone knows what kind of person you are, not afraid to respond. In the police station, everyone is just controlling themselves. You have no reason to call that dancing, making everyone lie. You do not pay. How can it be called dancing? Everyone is familiar with the nonsense of your friends. I will seek the Wei Kong to sue those who mock at this moment. Sung Tin Fong modestly requests guidance from Min Dean. I heard you recently joined the guard team, and you already love Miss Fu Hong. In addition to the poem, is there any other secret? Xu Qian proudly raises an eyebrow. Of course, there is a secret in there. You want to learn how to tease the beautiful lady and make people gasp, then immediately ask what the secret is. Can you teach us? A strict command is heard from the door as people are chatting while working, whether you still comply with discipline. Gently explaining to Zhang Jinluo and Hu Nian Nan how to sleep with the beautiful ladies without spending money. Their sharp eyes scan everyone. Lan Hang says that people only dream. Chat but don't focus too long. The drumbeater laughs in a harmonious manner without exposing them because they also want to listen. Tuam Luke turns and leaves but doesn't go far before quietly returning. Hiding in a corner to eavesdrop, Tong Din Fong hints at Shu Qi and lets go. Shu Qian pretends to be deep in thought and says they somewhat understand. Tong Din Fong immediately understands even though he doesn't want to. But because of the lady, he still has to give in and pour a cup of tea for him. Shu Qian takes a sip to moisten his throat and says, actually, Miss Fu Hong likes me because of a poem, but she really can't leave me. But it's not because of the poem. People quickly ask, then what is it? Shu Qian asks back, do you know why women hate men? Honest and silent Chu Kuang-yu speaks up first. Is it because of lack of talent? Tong Din Fong also gives his opinion. Thinking that there is no shadow, Shu Qian shakes his head and says not both. Not both, but prolonged indulgence. Fighting seems to be thinking about this. How does this relate to Miss Fu Hong not being able to leave him? Shu Qian's face becomes serious and certain. When I first went out with him, he asked a question when we closed the door. Then when I succeeded, he couldn't leave me. People think silently. Doubts arise. Tong Din Fong worries. I suspect he's deceiving us. But we have no evidence. Shu Qian gently says that's normal. This is not something ordinary people can understand, especially those not talented. I have told you the secret. Whether you understand it or not depends on your personal ability. Anxiety rises in a corner. Leaving with thoughts. Prolonged indulgence. Can it be possible or not? These two sentences are easy to understand at first, but later feel difficult. It seems there is a depth that cannot be imagined. Ask the demon with his wisdom. He will immediately understand this secret. After parting ways, Shu Qian returns to a Dao Dong. Not long after, a beauty comes in and says Shu Nan Le, the second Princess Chao Nian, has arrived. Shu Qian sits behind the desk without moving. I already know, I still have things to do. Shortly after, Shu Qian puts the file down and sighs. Recently, people in the martial arts world have been flocking to the capital as rumors of a martial arts competition spread. There may be many people coming to the capital to join the fun. Although it boosts the economy of the capital, the issues of fraud and robbery are increasing. Please ask the secretary to write a memorandum. First, to withdraw troops from the 13 roads outside the capital to maintain security. Second, to propose to the emperor to enhance patrols inside the city. Third, during this time, intruders, cutting throats, and robbers on the streets will be slashed. The first two things are to prepare for the third. Under heavy penalties, thieves will become desperate. Therefore, more troops and masters are needed to suppress, quickly eradicate the vice. Thieves on the streets will be slashed. Troublemakers on the streets causing injuries to passers-by or harming the finances of the shop owner. The first two things are to pave the way for the third. Under heavy penalties, the most daring thieves will go away. Therefore, a large force and a master are needed to suppress, to quickly cleanse the soul. To restore order and stability, we need to use heavy penalties to threaten the fraudsters in the underworld. When the writing is finished, along with Lak Tai Kung, the empress invited Mr. Shu Nyat Nyan into the palace. Shu that unfurrows his brows, wondering why he had to meet the royal court. Both princesses also invited him. So who should I meet first? The royal court is too smart, hard to deceive, and deep pride is not easily shown externally. It is not known when you will deceive her cleverly. Lang Nham is simpler compared to her. She is arrogant and stubborn, often causing trouble without holding grudges. After getting angry, she will forget immediately. Shu Qian thinks for a moment and decides to choose Lang Nham because she seems easier to deceive. A normal horse-drawn carriage stops in front of the mansion. Shu Tan 9 lowers the curtain and steps down from the wooden seat prepared by the coachman, then reaches out to Shu Lin, whispering, you seem too thoughtful on this road. Is it because of worry? Shu Tu replies with a serious face, even if I meet the king now, I won't worry. Follow me. Nothing will happen. When Fac Tung from the mansion came to meet them, smiling, Fac Tung welcomes Mr. Shu to come in. Shu Ni Lang does not respond but looks deeply at the signboard of the mansion, feeling confident in an infinite fighting spirit. He is a leading talent of his generation even though there are tigers in the mountains. He also decided to visit the current capital. Anyway, you must communicate with the current admiral.